and welcome to another episode of RS Tech Talk. I'm your host, Miguel Godino, and for today's episode, we have a special guest, Dan Anderson from Omron, where we're going to be talking about their panel components and how they bring optimization to your panel builds. Now, before we get started, Dan, could you tell us a little bit about your background and role at Omron?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here today, Miguel. Really appreciate it. As mentioned, my name is Dan Anderson. I am a components product manager here at Omron Industrial Automation. I've been with Omron for going on 4.5 years now or so. And as I mentioned, I kind of handle everything that would be going on inside of a control panel in terms of power supplies, temperature controllers, limit switches, predictive maintenance, the whole standard offering of what you would see inside of a panel builder style of product.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for that really quick introduction, Dan. Now, to start, I was able to research a bit about Omron's panel components, and there's a whole large variety of them, right? So the thing I want to focus on for today's video is the advantages it brings to panel builds. And there's 4 key things I noticed while doing research on these panel components. There were footprint reduction, increased energy efficiency, assembly labor reduction, and weight optimization. So I want to talk with you to expand on these, starting off with the footprint reduction on these components. What was the idea behind this, and how does this bring optimization to panel builds?
That's a great question. So back in 2016, Omron actually took a holistic approach to our control panel products. And so this included 4 different design frameworks that we added to basically the design and development process of our control panel products. So as you mentioned, those key different design intentions were footprint reduction, energy efficiency, labor reduction, and then weight reduction as well. So first, starting off with the footprint reduction. So since 2016, all of our products have been designed around a common and unified design height, right? And so we've got a representative picture here that we can kind of put up on the screen that kind of shows what we're talking about in regards to that design strategy. And so this has allowed us to minimize the actual footprint associated with our products and eliminate dead space, and ultimately, lets you squeeze more products within your control panel space. In addition to that, because you've got that unified design height, it allows for unimpeded airflow to go inside of the control panel, which allows for more heat to be removed and not have to use any of that energy to actually transition over different design heights. So if you're able to have unimpeded airflow, that allows for cooler temperatures inside of your control panel. Those cooler temperatures also allow for longer lifespan on the products that are going to be inside of those control panels as well, right? So obviously a longer lifespan means that your products last longer and you don't have to replace them as fast, and so you get a better return on your investment when choosing Omron control panel products.
Awesome. Well, it's kind of crazy how just reducing that footprint causes all these benefits to kind of cascade into bigger benefits, right? So awesome to hear that. And on the topic, not only did Omron work on physical design, but I also read power design, right? So can you expand on what Omron did to provide energy efficiency, power efficiency, those type of things?
Great question. So another component of that holistic design framework that we talked about was a focus on energy efficiency, right? So every product that we've released since 2016 has gone through an energy maximization design intent, right? And so, for example, our temperature controller products, right? We used to use 13 direct lit LEDs as a way to have backlighting on the actual control panel, the actual display of our temperature controller. We've since moved to using 3 edge-lit LEDs, and as a result, we've been able to save about 13% of energy consumed just in normal operation of the actual temperature controller. So take this same design strategy applied to, say, like power supplies as well. So we've gone from what we call a soft switching method in terms of minimizing the intersection of the voltage and the current waveforms in our power supplies, which in some cases have offered up to a 40% reduction in the amount of energy consumed just from the AC voltage input to the DC voltage output.
Well, really awesome innovative ideas from Omron, and it's pretty easy to see how these small changes here and there can vastly improve overall efficiency. So really great to hear that. Now, not is it only improving energy efficient, but I also saw time efficiency, right? Can you tell us what Omron did to reduce assembly labor?
Great question. So another one of those design intents that we talked about was essentially applying different technologies to our panel products in an effort to reduce the amount of assembly labor associated with installing our products and wiring them up, right? So one of the technologies that we've included in all of our products since 2016 is push-in plus technology, right? So in some cases, push-in plus technology has been shown to reduce the amount of time associated with wiring the actual control panel components by up to 60%, right? You're not always going to get 60%, but that's kind of a best case scenario, right? And ultimately, any reduction is always a positive thing. So not only does it reduce the amount of time associated with wiring the actual components themselves, but it also eliminates the need for any sort of periodic maintenance associated with retightening screw terminals, right? So if you can imagine screw terminals in a high vibration environment, say like a press or something, or any sort of manufacturing floor where there's a lot of vibration, you're going to have periodic maintenance, making sure that those screw terminals are always tight and you're not having a high resistance condition happen on the wire with a loose terminal, right? So not only does it have the actual reduction of periodic maintenance associated with retightening screw terminals, but it also eliminates any sort of concern from shipment as well, any sort of those screw terminals that might have loosened up during the shipment process. So in addition to having that labor reduced associated with push-in plus technology, we've also unified the actual inputs and outputs on all of our component products as well. So all of the inputs are going to be on the top side of the components, and all of the outputs are on the bottom side. So this is going to help out with speed and accuracy when you're assembling lots of components, right? You can kind of do all the tops and then all the bottoms, and you're commonizing everything all at once, right? So that's another way that we've helped to reduce the amount of labor associated with installation. In that same spirit, we've also designed our control panel products with what we call front-in wiring, right? So instead of the wires coming out and then interfering with other wires as they're trying to go to the actual control panel and connect to the devices, we've made it so the wiring kind of comes out front and then goes to the side. So there isn't any sort of interference or interaction with other control panel products that are in close proximity, right? So especially when you've got, you've got reduced footprints, you're squeezing these things in there, you want to make sure that the wires aren't interfering, right?
Awesome.
So these design intents are a way to reduce the amount of assembly labor associated with building and assembling control panel products, which ultimately reduces your lead time and as a result saves you money.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with save time and money. That's something easy to sell to our viewers. So awesome to hear that you guys were able to focus on that. So one last focus that I want to talk about is weight optimization. What does reducing weight on these components do for a panel?
That's a great question, and it's not one that people ask very often, right? So another one of the design frameworks that Omron has implemented in their products since 2016 was focusing on selecting components that still meet our design criteria but have a focus on weight savings, right? So what this means is every component, every product that we've made since 2016 has gone through a lens of where we're saying, okay, what's going to meet our actual requirement but also have the lowest weight possible associated with this. So as a result of that, we've had some bills of materials within a component control panel where we've been able to reduce the actual weight savings associated with the component bill of material by approximately 40% in some scenarios, right? So if you think about, from the raw material coming into Omron, being manufactured into a component, being distributed along the supply chain to a control panel assembler, and then ultimately to the end user, you're going to be capturing all of that weight savings from the start to the finish of basically being more efficient and less energy used in the actual process of transportation, distribution, and final assembly as it goes from, raw components all the way to end product, right? Being used.
Yeah, it's really amazing that you call that out because that's something, like you said, it's not something that you think right away about how weight can reduce or be more energy efficient. So really great that you brought that up to our viewers to know about how weight can affect that. Now, that is pretty much everything I had for you today, Dan, for going over these key advantages that Omron offers for these panel components. But we do have a bit of time to go over one product series. As you can see on the screen here, we have a whole variety of components from Omron. So it would take about 6-7 videos to kind of go over each one of these. So for today's video, can you tell us one of your favorite series that you want to talk about, or at least have our viewers learn more about?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, we've talked about footprint reduction, we've talked about energy savings, we've talked about assembly labor savings, and we've talked about weight savings, right? So now you've got yourself a really optimized control panel. The next thing to do is protect it, right? And so we have a product called the K6PM Thermal Condition Monitor, which is basically a thermal imaging system that you would put inside of the control panel. And so it monitors the temperatures of everything within its field of view in a grid system, right? So if you have something that's basically beginning to fail or in a thermal runaway condition, you've got a camera that's now monitoring that and has the ability to take action if you've got something that has exceeded what you have as your alarm, right? So, hey, let me know when you are higher than 60 degrees Celsius or some sort of condition where you're really worried about the temperature inside of your control panel, right? So this thermal imaging system can be daisy changed up to 31 cameras in series, and it has the ability to basically look at all the components that are inside of your control panel. And if you've got something that's starting to fail, it even has the ability to predict its future temperature up to 58 minutes in advance, right? So you have something that is basically predicting a failure that could start a fire. You'll know about it almost an hour in advance, and you have the ability to take action before something damages your control panel and creates unplanned downtime and you know, all those big fires that we always kind of see as the shock and awe pictures, you know?
Yeah, awesome. Well, so not only are these optimizations built into the parts themselves, but you could also get other devices to further enhance these panels. So awesome to hear that. I could tell that Omron wants to drive home the point that they'll bring you the best edge when it comes to bringing these optimizations into these panel builds into your facility. So awesome. Dan, that is pretty much all I had for you today. But before we sign out, is there any last thoughts that you want to talk about?
Thank you, Miguel. So as we've kind of talked about today, many of the topics that we've discussed have more additional information available on the RS's website, or it can also be found at automation.omron.com. You can also reach out to a local Omron representative and have more information on how to optimize your control panel design if you want. Thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it, Miguel.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dan. Really appreciate your time coming down here and talking about these panel components and how they could bring optimizations into your panel builds. Hopefully our viewers learned a little bit more about how Omron brings that edge into their facility. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Remember to check out RS and Omron for your future panel builds, and we'll catch you next time on the RS Tech Talk.